Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Macabre Matinee
Yeah.
with Craig and Sean, where we discuss all things in the horror genre of movies. And yeah, we actually got the name right this time.
We
Uh,
did. We did, in fact. It was an error last week, but we're moving on. We're trucking on with it regardless.
yeah, you might have joined us last week for Macabre Meeting, but the in fact name of our show is Macabre Matinee.
Yeah, it's
It,
true.
it is true. I am Craig Lance.
I'm Sean, bearded Capolitan.
There you go. And we'd like to thank you guys for joining us as we continue on our journey through the Friday the 13th movies. As always, this is where we issue our spoiler warning. Remember, we can't talk about these movies without spoiling them.
That's true.
So if you haven't seen the movie, pause the show, go watch the movie, and then come back and listen. Coming back and listening is the most important part of those instructions.
Absolutely.
Because without you guys, we are just talking to ourselves, and we're good with that. But we'd like to hear what you guys want to think about what we're saying too.
Exactly.
So today we're going to continue talking about the Friday the 13th movies, as I said, and we're going to discuss part 2. This is a direct sequel to the first movie. This particular episode sequel, it was released in 1981. It was directed by Steve Miner and written by Ron Kurtz. I think that's how you say his name.
Kurtz, yeah.
It's
Sounds right
yep.
to me.
It stars Amy Still as Jenny, John Fury as Paul, and Warrington Gillette as Jason Voorhees.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The runtime of the movie is about an hour and 26 minutes. It feels a little bit shorter because you got about 15 minutes of flashbacks in the opening sequence.
Yeah, even though it was released only a year, roughly around a year since the first one, they just really had to recap it. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some people, forgot, I guess, that amazing ending of part one.
Well, I mean, it does a flashback, but there's something happening during that flashback.
Yeah, absolutely.
It picks up 2 months after the ending of the first movie, and Jason, using his epic detective skills, has tracked down Alice and exacts his revenge for the killing of his mother.
Yep.
And yeah, while he's hunting her down, she's having all these flashbacks and dream sequences and all of this. Just kind of giving you, it was an interesting way to kind of give you an overview of what happened in the ending of the first movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I mean, there's been far worse, as I just recently reviewed Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, where the first half of that entire movie is just a flashback of the first one. So at least we're not,
wow.
at least we're not going that level of it. But
Yeah.
so it's a good recap. Nothing wrong
It is
with
a
that.
good recap, and nothing wrong with it at all. A lot of people, as you mentioned, maybe they watched this movie, years later, like they came back to them at different times and didn't watch them in order or whatever. So,
Right.
it's always good to have a little recap in there, especially when it's a direct sequel like this one is.
Right.
And so then it jumps ahead 5 years later, and Camp Blood, as it is now known, is still shut down, but a neighboring camp is reopening. No children allowed. This is a camp to train counselors to be better counselors.
Yeah, because opening adjacent to the mass murder scene is so much safer.
Exactly. I mean, literally right next door, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is I've never been there, but I'm assuming this is that good old New Jersey logic. Which I forgot to actually mention in the first movie, but it's still relevant because it also takes place right around the same place. May not know, but yeah, Camp Crystal Lake is in Jersey.
Yeah.
Just a little side note.
Yeah, which will come into play later when somehow Jason ends up all the way wherever Elm Street is.
Right. Oh, he gets around, man. He gets around, especially those
He,
rivers that connect you to Manhattan and all.
exactly,
The
into
lakes that,
space,
yeah.
and
He
yeah,
travels. He's a wandering man.
Jason does travel.
But we'll get to those when the time comes.
Absolutely. So this camp is actually being ran by a dude named Paul, with the help of his girlfriend Jenny.
Yep.
They start out by trying to discourage people from sneaking over to the old Camp Crystal Lake by telling a story, by telling the story of Jason.
Yeah, yeah. Which is
uh,
where we start getting into the fun continuity of Friday the 13th. Because, like, to the knowledge, like, how does anyone know? Because I don't feel like Alice went around telling everyone what went, like everybody. You know
yeah.
what I mean? To where, so how the camp counselors tell, and then that's the big thing too. They even say, like, in his scary story about that there's already a legend of Jason's still out there.
Yeah, yeah, and that was just a dream sequence.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's horror movie logic, and it's
right.
fine. It
Yeah,
it works out well. It's Jason's become an urban legend at this point, and he tells the scary story, and then scares the crap out of them. Has one of the other counselors dress up in a mask and a spear and jump out at them, and kind of scares everybody, and he's kind of hoping that this will kind of dissuade everybody, but really doesn't,
I mean, this
for the
is
most part maybe, but yeah, there's
this is the
you
dumb
know
teenager genre that
exactly.
we are dealing with.
It, as we all know, this really isn't a legend, and eventually things happen, and one that's a great description, right? Things
Things
happen.
happen. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
stuff happens in the movie, and then people no. So there's a girl that has a dog, and the dog runs off and has disappeared, and then there's this one couple that decides that they're going to go check out old Camp Crystal Lake,
yep,
and they head on over there, and they think they find the remains of the dog, but they're going to keep quiet about it, not tell
right.
anybody.
Which is like,
And
more people are distraught over this dog's death than any of these teenagers. They're like, not the dog. You don't fuck with the dog.
yeah, don't hurt the dog, whatever you do. And so they head on over, and as they first get there and start to explore, the police show up. I guess they're really watching this camp,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
making sure no one's going there ever. The cop just happens to be wandering around Camp Crystal Lake.
Right.
So, so he takes them, rounds them up, takes them back, delivers them to Paul, and threatens Paul that if he can't keep his campers in line, he's going to shut them down. No one wants them open anyways.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Paul tells him he'll handle it. And his way of handling it is to make them stay behind while the rest of the group goes to town to have a party.
Yep.
But leaves what, about 6 of them behind, 7 of them
Well, a few
behind?
choose to stay back, while some of the
Yeah,
others wanted to go out and drink and have some fun before, because it's going to be like after tonight, it's all work. It's all time to get training going. So they're like one last party, but a few are just not
exactly.
feeling it.
Exactly. And some of them are just kind of flirty with each other and want to hang out and see what happens there, as,
Right.
teenagers are bound to do. And it wouldn't be a Friday the 13th movie if it didn't start raining.
Gotta have the rain, man.
And so, they go to town, they're partying. And in the meantime, back at camp, well, Jason has kind of started picking people off.
He does. And,
Yeah.
and I believe, like, it was during that sequence we get the return of Crazy Ralph. Also, like, before they
Yes.
had I'm not sure if we really covered him or not in the first one, but he was the old man that came out the cupboard and was like, "This place has a death curse. You're all gonna die." Warning. And he comes back and is like, "Damn it, Ralph, get the fuck out of here!" And he gets taken out in
Yeah.
this film. Pretty brutal. Garroted. I never known how to say that word properly. Choked with barbed wire.
Yeah, yeah, it was a heck of a kill.
Yeah.
Which I feel like this movie kind of stepped up the kills a little bit, but we'll get to that in just
Right.
a
Right.
minute. So yeah, so Jason starts picking off these kids, kind of one by one, as he's apt to do.
Right.
Um, Meanwhile, Jenny and Paul return to camp to kind of find everything out of order.
Right.
Like what's going on? They wouldn't have left the camp this way. These are responsible teenagers. Why would they leave the camp all ransacked and lights are all on and oh wait, there's blood all over this bed and what the hell's going on? And
Right.
so they go back downstairs and they are soon attacked by Jason. And while Paul is fighting off Jason, Jenny eventually escapes through the woods and finds herself in Jason's cabin where she finds an altar to his mother.
Yes.
Uh,
With
she tried.
a piece of her mother, the one that got removed at the end of the
Yeah,
first one.
yeah. Her mom's decaying head is sitting on this altar with candles around it, and conveniently enough, his mom's sweater.
Yeah.
So Jenny, who has a degree in child psychology, realizes that if she picks this up, which she literally does in the movie, it sets that up.
Yeah.
She picks up the sweater, puts it on, and she starts imitating Mrs. Voorhees. And Jason miraculously starts calming down, and she's telling Jason, "It's okay. You've done good. You did what I asked you to do. Your work's done." And just as she goes to strike down Jason, she moves just enough
Yep.
that he can see his mom's decaying head on the altar, and he just becomes enraged and goes after Jenny.
Yep.
And Paul, who we thought Jason had killed, shows up at the nick of time, distracting Jason just long enough for Jenny to quote unquote finish him off.
Yep. I believe it was was it the machete? Like to the collarbone or something, like right there in right his
Yeah,
neck area.
yeah, and of course it's we all believe he's dead.
Yeah.
After we didn't know there was going to be a part 3
Right. Right.
at this point. We thought she had won, and Jason's dead, and so let's open this up for discussion now. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh well, actually, I want to go ahead and finish out because it is spoilers, and
Yeah,
because you brought it up earlier, the whole thing he's dead and they're kind of like recovering in the cabin, and this is actually one of the scarier moments I think in the entire movie of they're like okay it's done and they hear a noise outside, and even if you don't know like you said watching this new killers coming back isn't uncommon at this point in the horror genre. So
right.
everyone's like, oh my god, and they're like, he's not dead. And they open the door, and there's the dog
Oh yes, I forgot the
that comes
dog.
in, and it's like piano, like it's so much relief and joy because the dog lived. Everyone's happy, and then Jason busts through the window without the hood, and you see his
Yes.
deformed face, and it's one of the best scares, damn near in the franchise, honestly. And
Yeah, and it just kind of ends there,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
we
you
don't know
just
if Ginny and Paul have lived or died or what. So
absolutely. And that's how they end the fucking movie. And that's why this one is so much damn fun with it. Because,
yeah,
we get some retreads of the first one, as most horror franchises are apt to do. You have the counselors, the responsible ones, the couple who want to go out and bang all the time. You have the jokester, same as like the first one a lot. But now we do have Jason and it's showing a man's boot and eventually the reveal of the hood with the one eye cut out, very the town that dreaded sundown inspiration,
yep,
for his look in the overalls and just the flannel shirt, very very basic. And I don't think he even has his signature machete till later. He actually uses pickaxes and a whole bunch of different weapons throughout.
he uses whatever tool he can get his hands on pretty
Yeah.
much throughout. Now there are some machetes back at his shack and
Right.
stuff like that.
Which I think he
Uh,
did. I know he used it in one because we're going to talk about it when we get to my favorite kill of the movie. But
Again, I bet we have the same favorite kill.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
so.
so.
We'll find out. But there's more I want to talk about before we get to before we
Yeah,
get to
for
it.
sure.
Just little notes. Apparently, Adrienne King, she had her appearance in the beginning. It was actually going to
Yeah,
be a bigger role. And
really,
weirdly enough, to the scene, she didn't want it to be. She didn't want to be in the movie very much because she was actually being stalked by a fan in real life.
really.
So Jason stalking her to her home, which I'm sorry if I missed it if you mentioned or not. He actually put his dead mother's head in her fridge before
Yeah,
killing
yes, he
her.
did. I didn't say it, but yes, he did.
Yeah, sorry, we're spoiling everything in this movie because
No, it's good. That's what we do.
but yeah, she had a real life stalker because of the first film, like breaking into her home in real life. So like she was willing to come back. She was, I don't know, obligated, but she was willing to. But she definitely, like, I think she was actually supposed to be at the camp, like a returning character.
Oh, okay.
But after
And
that, she was like, please let me just get rid of my character, kill me off in the beginning. Which, of course, later, years later, it had to be. I'm not sure, but it had to be an inspiration for like Drew Barrymore to begin to Scream.
oh, it has to be. I mean, and they even reference that in
Right.
Scream.
But
So,
that's interesting. And the other big one is that uncredited, but I believe he may have done some other special effects, but I know for a fact he did at least the early, if not the complete design of Jason's. I don't know if this term's outdated and forgive me, but like the Mongolian, his deformed features, Mongoloid, I mean,
yeah,
look,
Mongoloid. Yeah.
and I apologize if that's an outdated term. I don't know, but Stan Winston actually worked on that.
Oh, okay.
So that's another big, like, we had Tom Savini in the first one, then we have another legend in practical makeup and effects, Stan Winston, worked on
Right.
this little. Well, granted, at this point, Friday the 13th made so much money. This wasn't necessarily like looked upon as a low budget sequel. This was another big blockbuster, like blockbuster in quotations as horror movies go. It was a big production, but
Yeah.
but yeah, like this brought in Jason, which again, I believe we discussed in the first one, but I'll kind of reiterate real quickly. Of like, we had the legend in the beginning talking about Jason still out there, but according to the first movie, like if they never made another sequel, Jason is either a zombie kid. No, because they showed her waking up and saying so. Like, Jason was supposed to be drowned as a child, and that's why
Right.
Mrs. Voorhees kills people. But then now we have part two with again continuity and horror. I know this is just fan that I like kind of piece it all together. The legend I can't really explain, but like I don't believe Jason ever died. I think his mom was just fucking crazy and wanted to murder
Yeah.
people. So Jason had clearly been living in a shack for a long time. They both probably were. Or maybe she lived in town. I don't know, because she wasn't really dirty or anything. She looked very nice when she first showed up to murder everybody, murder people on camera.
I yeah, I kind of feel like maybe she was living, maybe had a house out in the country somewhere, because we do
Right.
find out in later movies that around this lake there are different houses.
True. True.
So I feel like maybe she lived out there somewhere and in her mind thought Jason was dead
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's just been surviving on his own this whole time.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that's yeah, because that's what I think is that he's been out there, and like you had brought up, he actually was helping her with some of these kills, and even if she doesn't,
Yeah.
and I don't think she even realized because in her head, even if she looked at him, she probably wouldn't even acknowledge him because she's just that damn crazy over a child that never actually. He may have like maybe he had a scare and lived, but she just fucking snapped.
Yeah, she lost her mind.
Yeah. So, but now we're dealing with Jason with the mommy issues, as it were, because he loves his mother like any good boy should, and yeah, so he's on a vengeance tear, and it's good.
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the mommy issues again is another play on Psycho, right? You have this
Oh yeah,
guy,
yeah,
he's out here killing people because he thinks that's what mommy wants.
yeah. Because in his head, she's still talking to him. That's the shrine. That's why Jenny was able to kind of stop him because like he was full blown ready to kill her, and she got on the sweater and like tucked her hair in to give her the shorter hair that Betsy Palmer had, and like was like mommy's talking like he's not buying it at first, but the more she sells it, he does stop, even to the point of dropping to his knees, where that's when she was going to try and finish him. I think she had a pickaxe or something at that point, like because
I think she had a machete,
maybe
but
the machete.
yeah,
Okay, the machete, and like was going to try and finish him at that point, but then like you said, she moved just a little too much, and he saw it, and it's well done for a guy in a potato sack, you know. But I really like that with just one eye visible, you can see the quick look. Then the look up, and it's just kind of like betrayal, anger, and I'm gonna murder you, bitch. Without being able to see the face, I think like the body language of Gillette really just he did very good.
I think Gillette was excellent as Jason. He brought a humanity to the character. Now, of
Right,
course, we didn't know what Jason was going to become at this point. This was our only uh, knowledge of Jason, other than that brief shot in the first movie.
right,
Uh,
and
you
then
know, so but he brings this humanity to him throughout this. You know, he gets beat a couple of times. He kind, you know, it's he's unstoppable, which is Jason. You know, he's an
right,
unstoppable force.
yeah. But he's
But
like he's not he's tough. He's like
that's right.
like Michael Myers, who up ignoring the later movies where it became supernatural. Same with Jason, it became supernatural
Right.
in the later films. But it's just that too crazy to die in a sense. Like it's
Yeah.
just like you power through it because you're just driven that hard to murder the fuck out of some people. I
Well,
guess
and that's what mommy wanted, right?
absolutely.
So he was going to do it because that's what his mom wanted,
And I do
and it
believe, like, I'm trying to remember. Like, unfortunately, I didn't write down my notes because I'm a bad note taker. Uh, but I do believe the classic number, the cha cha cha
yeah,
noise has been like whether intentional or not. It kind of became the thing because with Bessie Palmer saying kill a mommy," it's kind of like what that was a playoff of her hearing Jason talk to her dead son talking to her in her head.
right,
And then it got flipped to Jason hearing mom talking to him of kill them, that kind of thing. So
right.
that's always what the is supposed to kind of be is you're getting a little bit into their head because again, music is used very sparingly in these films, and I think that's to a great effect for the tension, especially with all the first person shots.
Yeah, again, I think the score is done perfectly in this particular movie. It's not, as you said, it's not used uh, overly used,
Right, right,
but when it is used, it's used to build that suspense and that tension,
yep.
and it works, man. That is as iconic as the theme song to Halloween.
Oh yeah,
You know,
for sure.
those two are both. As soon as you hear those sounds, you know what's about to happen.
Right. Which is, like I said, the music for a silent killer is super important. Like they both have yeah, the Halloween theme. Anyone who knows that movie, if you start to hear those initial beats, you know what that is. You hear the you know we're talking about Friday the 13th because neither of these killers have the benefit of say like Freddy Krueger doesn't need a theme song because we're not going to discuss Freddy's Dead until later. But his iconic wit, his one-liners and stuff, because he has that benefit. So he never needed. Although there was damn good music, but we'll talk about Nightmare
Yeah,
another time. But so yeah, so I think like the score, of course, fans and like us who love horror in general, the score is something you just don't really hear people bring up enough in horror movies because typically they use it for cheap scares, a sudden burst of music, for a jump scare.
yep,
But like
yep. Bust a window.
yeah. Now
Yeah.
but the subtle use of music to slowly rise tension is just how it should be done, in my opinion.
Well, especially when you're on a campground in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
you know, it should be quiet out there, and especially with a killer creeping through the woods, it kind of gives off that vibe of even the animal life is scared of him.
Right. Now,
Nothing's making a noise in the forest, in the woods around the cabins.
right.
That so that it does build that tension because it's very much man versus nature, right?
Oh no, absolutely. Because it is like yeah, they're out there fully exposed, fully vulnerable, and despite that, which is kind of what I wanted to segue into the campers in this film. while still like well done. Well, and like I said, we had some of the same kind of archetypes in there. We really start to see where where the dumb choices are getting a little more prevalent in this film.
Ye-
because
Yeah,
like in the
yeah,
first one, they're teenagers. We're all dumb when we're teenagers, but really, like Kevin Bacon and all of them were just like it felt like they were just like, hey, we're just having fun out at the camp before the work starts. So there wasn't too much like let's go into the scary cabin. Let's go, or like in this, I forget their names, but no, there's that couple, and the girlfriend is just repeatedly insisting on going to see Camp Blood,
yeah.
which, if I'm not mistaken, ironically, is not where they die, but they do go over there.
They're the couple we talked about that went over there and found a
Oh yeah,
dead
yeah,
dog, but it turned out not to be the
not
dog
not to be a
that they.
princess, I believe was her name.
Yeah, it was not Princess. And actually, at one point, it leads you to believe because the dog runs right up to Jason's boot,
Yep. Yes.
and then the next time you see this same colored dog dead. You're like, oh well, Jason ate the dog and left the remains here.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Jason has nothing against
He
dogs.
does not. He's an animal lover, and he's a good person
He is
because
a good person
these people
because
are
he loves those
trespassing.
dogs.
These kids are trespassing on his property. They killed his mother. So you know what? Jason's really just defending his rights,
I mean, that is one way to look at it for
right?
sure.
That's a mentioned way to look at it. I acknowledge, but I do want to talk about a couple of the counselors, though. The first one
Yeah,
is
for sure.
Ted, the jokester. He's the one that wore the costume to scare all the kids during the scary movie. He's got a lot of one-liners and very reminiscent of the guy who we mentioned in the first one doing like the Native American dance and
Right.
a lot of fun. But do you remember how he died?
I don't. I thought he stayed in town.
Exactly. That was a trick
Yeah.
question. He lived by staying and drinking alcohol, which is supposed to be one of the tenets of a horror movie that you don't do because that guarantees death. When they all went out to party, he was stacking bottles. And they were like, "Hey, we got to go back." He's like, "I'm good. I'm good. I'm just gonna keep drinking," and he lived.
Yeah. In my mind, they all wrecked in that truck on the way back to camp, and
Right. So he was the lone survivor outside of Jenny, of course.
well, no, there was other counselors that went with them.
Oh,
Remember, they had a whole truckload of people
I
that
guess yeah,
went.
you're right. They didn't all go back.
Yep, yep. So a group of
Oh, yeah,
them.
yeah.
It was a way to thin the herd to
Right.
make it a little easy. As far as the story goes, to make it a little easier for Jason to pick off the remaining ones one by
Hey,
one.
look, Jason will thin the herd just fine on his own, y'all. Y'all didn't have to do that. You give him more bodies. But actually, this film went through a lot of censoring and editing. Like, as popular as the first one was, they still were fighting the censorship. Even though this had more, I think, a bigger body count and maybe and some more blood for sure, even that was still cut down.
Crazily enough,
Yeah.
this had exactly the same kill count.
Really? Nice.
By my count, it had nine. Nine murder death kills,
Oh, very
and
cool.
and apparently a dog that we don't know if it was Jason or not.
Right. We don't know if he's responsible for that dog. It is out in out in the woods. You never know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well, there's bears around too.
right.
They made it very
They did.
clear that there were bears around.
Yes. Yes, women's and their time of the month is not good around bears. Apparently, they made sure to tell
Yeah,
them that. But
yeah, and don't wear perfume.
yeah. But I wanted to talk about another camper counts. We'll call them campers. Another one of the youths. Is a man. I'm terrible. I'm a bad host. I didn't write his name down, but he was in the wheelchair.
Mark.
Mark, thank you, Mark.
And I only know that because I wrote down for my
Yep,
kill.
yep, exactly. Because that's what I'm leading to also. So yeah, we're in agreement again. But yeah, this kid is in, he's in a wheelchair. He's constantly showing though that he's capable. He's winning arm wrestling contests all throughout the movie. Got a girl flirting with him hardcore. She even stayed behind from them going out drinking because he was like, no, nothing makes everyone sober than the cripple at the party. He's like confident, but he's down about his situation, which brings a real humanity to him. Which is when like the girl really just starts like, "Hey, I'm gonna bang you," let's let's just cut out the middleman. Let me go. Let's just go ahead and get it done. And you're like, yeah, good on him, good on him. And she's like, but then it's raining, which we know is never a good thing, and she has to
And she has to
leave
go to a different. Yep.
to
There you
go
go.
get dolled up for him. And so we got our boy. He's in a wheelchair. He feels like he's down on himself. And this is when Jason takes this motherfucker a machete to the face. Just
And hits him so hard he
he,
rolls
he rolls
backwards.
down the stairs with the machete. This dude ain't got enough wrong in his life, and I know, but I'm saying it felt, and maybe I shouldn't be pitying a guy who's in a wheelchair, but it felt extra cruel to do that right before he's about to get laid. Which again, don't do that or you're gonna die in a movie.
I was gonna say if he wasn't, talking up the girl, he would have been fine.
Hey, she was coming on to him. But
Yeah.
but anyway, but yeah, they were gonna have the sex, which of course meant the death, and but that is a brutal fucking kill because not only is it granted they cut like they filmed like a fake head where they're really just putting the machete into it, but of course that got cut
Yeah.
down, but you still get a good shot of it just in his face, and then his body rolling down the steps in the wheelchair. And it's just mean spirited at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I think that was both of our favorite kills
Yeah.
in this one. But there was another very iconic kill in this one
Right.
where they took the Kevin Bacon kill
Oh yeah.
from the first movie and stepped it up a notch.
They did in fact.
Where Jason shoves the spear through the both of them
Yes.
while they are just finishing up having sex.
Yeah. The couple that went and explored Camp Blood and then came back and stayed behind. They were in trouble for doing that, so they had to stay behind. But they decided, well, we're staying behind. We're gonna fuck. So that led to Jason just being like, "Not on my watch, bitch." And yeah, just takes the spear that that Ted had used to scare the kids, actually. And
Yeah,
you even see him
apparently
pulling
it
off
was-
that mask off of it to grab it, and then right through the both of them at the same damn time.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's one of the most iconic kills in the entire series, I would think.
Oh, for sure. Which again, the idea of putting a spear through two bodies, man. Jason lifts. You got it. That's arm strength in there, right?
Yeah.
He's got a good workout
he
routine.
didn't skip arm day. Yeah. And I assume the first time you're watching it, you assume it's a fake spear. What do they need a real spear for out there?
Right.
They're not. And he's using it to scare the kids, or they're not kids. They're teenagers, maybe young adults.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, overall good. I felt like this one stepped everything up just a little bit. The gore level by today's standards is still kind of mild, but it's definitely a step up from the first movie, in my opinion.
And still, like again, this kind of shows the evolution of horror film and what audiences are okay with. Is this was controversial when it released too? They thought it was too violent, too bloody, too all same old stuff the first one also got, which of course the companies love because that just drove more people to go watch it in theaters.
Yeah, the more that you cause a controversy about a video game or a movie, the more it sells.
I said, bad publicity is still publicity.
That's exactly right. I felt like the suspense in this movie was stepped up as well.
Yeah.
I felt like the tension, as we talked about earlier, with the score and the classic,
Right.
That classic. I felt like it really helped the suspense. The entire movie, I was more on edge, I would say, throughout this movie than I was the first one.
Oh, absolutely. Is definitely a tighter production, because and to be fair, the first one really was very just like spur of the moment on some decisions and just like a lot of people's first movie ever, and that's even in production level. So like, but when most of the crew came back, for the behind the scenes came back for it, no, they were a bit better. Plus, they actually had more money to work with because of the success of the first one, and it shows. It's and I don't think it was ever intended to be a sequel. Sean S. Cunningham had just planned to make one movie. He just wanted to make the horror movie he always wanted to make, with tributes to, of course, to his favorites out there, and move on to other projects. But no one saw this coming as to be a hit and to be a franchise that went as long as it did. So to make a sequel that's just as good, if not better, in some situation, in certain segments of it, is pretty damn impressive.
I wholeheartedly agree. I actually feel like this one is slightly better
Oh,
than the first one. Not by leaps and bounds
right.
by any stretch, but I felt like just the little bit of stepping up they did and everything, a little bit more gore, a little bit more suspense. I really liked Jason as the killer. To
Right.
me,
Oh yeah.
it's a bit more believable than his mom,
Right. Right.
because essentially it's the same story, right?
It is the exact same story, but
They
yeah,
took part one, they made part two, they exchanged the killer,
yeah,
and gave it just a different setting.
right.
I mean, there's a little bit different. It's the same plot, though, right? And
It
that's
is.
not a knock in
No, no.
any way, shape, or form, because all horror movies kind of follow that same.
Like it is the formula, and
That's right.
that's in general, and especially again with a sequel that wasn't ever supposed to happen. You don't blame it for wanting to kind of stick with what brought him to the dance, and I think it actually absolutely worked. In fact,
It,
'cause I know we're going to do our ratings, because I'm not used to actually going like with a franchise, kind of giving a rating score, which I kind of want to retroactively rate part one again.
okay,
Because
go
taking into
for it.
consideration like how looking at them both, I gave part one in our review a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah,
Actually, I want to give it a 4 now because of what part two did step up enough. I want to give part two a 4.5.
I will agree. Same. So we're gonna retroactively change our score on part one to a combined 8,
Yeah,
and on part two to a 9.
yeah. Because if nothing else alone, like as much as I loved the iconic Kevin Bacon throat shot, that machete to the wheelchair, dude, is just the mark. It's so mean spirited and hilarious at the same time, which is what I live
it,
for in these kind of movies.
it it was the rolling down the stairs
Yeah,
that got it for me.
exactly.
I mean, he hit him so hard he rolled. It would have kept going if he had not been in the woods.
Yeah, yeah. If he didn't just finally fall over, but that combined with, as I had mentioned though, the dog reveal into the Jason scare, which I think was still a better done than the Jason scare from the lake.
Oh, I
From the
agree.
first one. So
It,
those alone are kind of why I wanted to give it. I don't. It's not a 5. It's not a 5 star. So I didn't want to give it that. But I definitely wanted to give it those, bump it up over the first one. The first one's iconic, but just because it's the first doesn't mean it's the best. And yeah, so
in fact, the only thing that to me that would have made this one better would have been a better runtime on it,
right,
a longer runtime with a look, especially since they did so much with the flashbacks in the first part,
right.
in the opening sequence. So it really only feels like about an hour and 15 minutes long.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true, and that's fair. But like,
so,
sometimes
but
like I
that's
said, oh
really the only negative that I have.
yeah,
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
no, no, you're good, you're good. I just want to kind of comment like, yeah, some expanded time, maybe give us another counselor death or something. But overall, for
Well,
telling the story, I felt it was pretty tight. I felt like that. I felt it was good. It didn't feel dragged at any point. So like, I don't know if making it a longer film necessarily would have made it any better.
no, you could have. The only thing you could have done was at the beginning of it, after you have the flashbacks and you get them all to the camp.
Uh huh.
It goes really fast till you start having the kills.
Oh,
You
okay,
don't
that's
really
fair.
get a chance. Whereas in the first movie, they build up kind of this. You kind of get to know each of the counselors, and the fact was we knew most of their names
True.
by the time they died in the first movie. In this one, you don't really get that
Yeah, yeah.
kind of on their personalities and knowing who they are outside of just, you know, this is the girl that wants to go see Camp Blood. This is her boyfriend that's going to do anything that she says because he wants to get laid later.
Right.
Um, this is the guy in the wheelchair. This is the girl coming on to him. This is the guy that runs the place. This is his girlfriend that helps him. You
Right.
don't really get to know them in any more sense. So maybe their deaths lose a little bit.
That's
But then
fair.
again, I'm not
No.
really watching them to see that either. So,
No, but you do make a fair. That's a very good point though, because even in these silly slasher films, where you can just tell like you're not supposed to care because you're like, oh, you're the girl that's gonna live. You're clearly gonna die first. You typically don't. But the deaths, if you can still find that if you like something about their character, even if it's minor, even if you can completely tell they're one of the ones that are not going to live, it does impact the kill. It makes it a little more important and maybe even a little more memorable. So that's a fair point, man. I'll agree with you on that.
so yeah. So outside of, maybe another 15, 20 minutes in the beginning to
Right.
build up to that, to them leaving and kind of setting up the kills, other than that, I really have no complaints about this movie. And again, you get your first look at Jason as an adult
Yep.
without his mask on.
Oh yeah. Which, as we'll discuss as we go through the sequels, it's gonna change a lot.
It
Like,
is.
yeah, they do because like not only is it a different person playing Jason for majority of the series until much later, yet they don't have always the same makeup artist, and for whatever
Right.
it's gonna change. But this one I think is very simple and effective though, because
Well,
it's very hills have eyes, kind of like almost a deformed hillbilly look,
yep.
and I think that's okay.
It, well, and he's a taller version of Jason than you get later as well.
True, true, yeah,
Correct? He's one of the taller versions.
yeah, I believe so. I believe he well, like by the time they hit Freddy versus Jason, like yeah, they went with the tallest guy yet. But I do believe because like I mean, we'll go ahead and say his name because he's going to come up a lot later. The only repeated actor for it is Kane Hodder, and he's like 6'1". Like when I got to meet him, I was I was pretty taller than he was, So he's not a tall guy, but he's an imposing dude. Like he was cool as hell. But yeah, so like they really went with a lot of taller actors. I don't know if he was like one of the taller ones, but he was a big dude who played. Yeah, Gillette
Yeah,
was
I'm trying to see if I can get his
well,
information.
right. Well, I'll tell a fun anecdote while you're looking that up then about Gillette.
Same height, 6'1".
6'1"? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And I know but I do know there were some people that played Jason in the other movies that were taller and bigger eventually. Especially like I said, when we got to Freddy versus Jason, they didn't recast Hodder because they wanted someone who would really tower over. I'm forgetting Freddy Krueger.
Freddy.
Well, Freddy. Yeah, I was gonna try and give his actual name, but yeah, tower over Freddy. But what I was gonna say was the iconic scene of Gillette coming through as Jason through that window at the very end. Like he leaps through this. Like this motherfucker got to run and start up a hill or something because he comes from the top of the damn window, arms stretched out like he's doing a planche out of a wrestling ring at these people. But it's done in that slow motion that made it very terrifying with a loud. Like they amped up his vocals for a loud scream, and it looked great. And that was the second time they filmed it because the first time they didn't weaken the window frame and
No, no.
he just splat against it without like yeah he like a cartoon. They launched him because he did get launched over like a small like kind of spring contraption or trampoline, and
Yeah.
he just splat
Yeah.
against the window.
Ugh.
Poor guy. And he,
I'm sure there's some video of that somewhere.
oh, I hope so because like
Yeah.
and I do believe which also if I'm remembering correctly from the book I read about all the movies, he didn't particularly enjoy playing the role, which is the case for most of the actors, which is why we never really got the same Jason because the makeup,
Yeah.
the stunts, the work is because like I think he was like trying to be a model or something. They just got him because he was like 6'1" and in good shape. But he's like, oh, but I'm trying to get my face on camera. Like, nope, get under this makeup.
Well, and so again, though, he brings a humanness to Jason. His acting for somebody that isn't known for his acting and
Right.
never really was known for his acting. Um, he brought a humanity to Jason, and like you said, just being with one eye, being able to see that anger and that rage.
Yeah. Oh no, he did
Uh,
great. As much as like
yeah.
apparently he didn't enjoy the pro. I think it was really more the makeup than anything.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think he did great. I think he, did a great start to the interpretations of Jason Voorhees that we got.
Right, and it,
Right.
it evolves over time, as does the makeup and the size and all of that. But it's okay. They weren't expecting people to watch these movies
Right.
back to back to back to back.
Right. These were made
You know,
for. Which again, too, like I'm thinking about it real quick, was that the sequel came out within a year, and this is that era, the '80s, where like a movie would be in the theaters for a long time, a lot longer than they are nowadays.
right? That's
So,
right.
so like, and maybe horror movies didn't have like what Star Wars was in theaters for like 4 years. So like, and so like maybe so maybe horror movies didn't have that kind of long time, but typically it was a lot longer between. So they were Friday the 13th maybe even started that whole like pumping out sequels, back to back because they were making a
Well,
lot of money.
certainly this one came out fairly quick and after the original, and you don't, but you can't tell that it was rushed or anything like
Oh no,
that. It's
not
certain,
at all.
yeah, yeah. It is one of my favorites in the series.
Oh no,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I don't know where it's going to fall. I'm kind of rewatching these for the first time in a long time with fresh
Right.
eyes.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I sat back and watched all of them. Every now and
Right.
again, I might just like, oh, okay, let's throw on a random one, just because I love the franchise so much, and it's that much harder for me to rank them, because like to me, in my own, even though there's no real continuity, I got my continuity. It still to me feels like one long saga of Jason, starting with this one. So
Yeah.
like, it's hard for me to want to play some. Which I don't know. Maybe that's something we can do when we actually finish the franchises. We can like rank them our own personal rankings.
Yeah. Well, what we'll do is I'll start keeping a score, and we can come back revisit it at the end and see if those scores still fit up.
Yeah, sure,
Still line up with where we, you know, which ones we think are the better ones.
absolutely. And we'd love to hear from y'all. Like, what did you think of this follow up? Is it better as we both agree that we think it's just nudged itself a bit better? A bit above the first one. But we'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on in the comments below.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a rating. Give us some comments. Tell your friends about us.
Yes. Like,
All those
comment,
good things.
subscribe to the channel. Share the video is always the big thing. Spread the word that there's some good horror goodness outside of October, like everyone does it in October. We're doing this year round because we love horror movies.
Yeah. And before we run off, Sean, did you have a recommendation?
I do have a recommendation. I almost forgot we did that thing.
I almost forgot it too. And this may be something we don't keep very long, but for now we'll see if we can come up with it. But yeah,
Oh,
what's your recommendation?
my recommendation is um, In the Mouth of Madness.
Okay, this is one I haven't seen. So
Yeah, this one is wow, I'm going blank on the name now. John Carpenter.
oh, okay.
John Carpenter's take on H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh yes, this is one you were telling me about a couple of weeks ago.
I
I have
tell I
got
tell
to
as
get this
many
one
people,
watched.
yeah, I tell as many people about this as I possibly can. It stars Sam Neill. He is a investigator searching for a book author for this major. He's like a Stephen King level writer in this world in the story, and Sam Neill's trying to find him so they could get the last book that's due. And without going into any more details, going to give away the tension, the thrills, the horror of it. But I already said it is John Carpenter and all his wacky greatness that I love in his films. He's not a subtle director, but he has taken on a nuanced thing in like a very psychological, eldritch horror kind of take, and I
All
love
right.
it. And of course, amazing soundtrack because Carpenter, and yeah, just great acting, great like freakiness, and it's kind of a slow build, but he ain't known for slow builds, so like for him, it's a slow build. But yeah, that
Well,
one.
he did a lot of good pacing in some of his earlier movies. As time went on, it you know
No, absolutely. I'm just like like The Thing is probably his best example of a
right,
slow build to horror. But even
right,
then, like there's some movies that go even slower. This is all I meant. Like no, he's a
yeah,
fantastic director. Like because he hasn't really done franchises outside of Halloween. Like we may do like his other horror maybe as that might be something later in the future. We'll discuss it off camera.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but yes, In the Mouth of Madness. I would definitely recommend that one.
Awesome. Well, if nothing else, I guess that's a wrap.
That's gonna do it, man. We will catch y'all later.